Johnny Chance, Chapter 1, The Broke Prospector. British Columbia, 1900. The sun's merciless summer rays beam down on the dusty streets of Lillooet. The people struggle with the business of making a living in the summer heat. In its heyday, the town of Lillooet was a bustling town of gold prospectors on their way to the Cariboo Goldfields, hoping to find their fortune that would lead them to a better life. The peak days of the famous Fraser River Gold Rush are now past, but many prospectors still pass through the town, some on their way north, and others still scratching out a living on the bars of the Fraser and Bridge River. One of these hopeful prospectors was a fellow named Johnny Chance. He had been sent to the goldfields of British Columbia by his drunk uncle, who had told him about his secret placer mine. If he was to make his way to the Fraser to a place called Cayoosh Creek, there was a secret bench containing massive chunks of coarse gold, which his uncle had found when he was part of the original Fraser River Gold Rush. Johnny had been given a map to the secret place plastered by his uncle, which for the past 2 years had been the source of his hope that the future did in fact hold some promise for him. But when he finally reached the location of the bench, it had been mined out by other prospectors, and there was not a trace of gold left, leaving Johnny broke in spirit and in the pocketbook. Facing the stark reality that he had run out of money, Johnny had reached the point of extreme starvation. Johnny finished the last of his rations on the trail 2 nights ago, and he had not had anything since. Feeling the desperation growing within, he makes his way down the street, his hand slipping down to the revolver on his side. A growl from Johnny's stomach that must be dealt with erased any doubts as to what is going to happen next. He opens the doors of the Lillooet Bank and steps inside. There is only one teller at work, and the bank is not terribly busy. A couple of people are waiting in line in front of him. An older gentleman takes out a poke full of gold, handing it to the bank teller, who opens the poke and pours the contents on the table, gasping as he stares at several large, coarse chunks of gold. The bank teller weighs the gold on weigh scales before handing the man the cash. Johnny Chance looks around, and there's no one in the line anymore, and it's now his turn to talk to the teller. "What can I do for you, sir?" the bank teller asks with a smile. "Do you have an account with us?" No, sir, I don't have an account," Johnny replies. "However, I would like to make a withdrawal," Johnny says, pulling out his dusty old revolver and grabbing the man by his tie, sticking his revolver in the teller's face. His hand shakes as he cocks his trusty revolver. "Oh, Jesus Christ, no," the teller yells in panic. "Please don't hurt me." "Don't worry, I don't want to hurt you. I know you're just doing your job. Just give me what you got, and I'll be on my way." The teller hands Johnny a stack of $100 bills and a gold poke the man had just cashed in. "That'll do just fine," Johnny says as he turns and rushes out of the bank. As he does, the bank teller dives under the counter and hits a button which sets off a bell. He then reaches for an old Colt 45 he has hidden under the counter in case of such emergencies as bank robberies. He cocks the hammer and sits up, but the outlaw has already exited the building. Johnny runs out of the bank as fast as his legs will carry him. He looks around for some way to get out of here fast when he spots a majestic black stallion tied up in front of the bank. He unties the horse and jumps on it, giving it a quick kick in the ribs with the ankles of his boots to get it running down the street. The bank teller emerges from the bank, waving his gun in the air. "Stop that man," the teller yells into the street as Johnny disappears over the horizon, leaving behind a cloud of dust. The yells of the teller attract the attention of the police. RCMP officer Fred Foreman walks up to the distraught and angry bank teller. "Tell me what happened," Fred asks the frantic teller. "The man robbed the fucking bank. You must stop him," the teller demands. Constable Foreman signals 2 of his officers with him to give pursuit. "He has not had that big of a head start. We'll catch him," Fred says, getting on his horse and following his men into the cloud of dust left by the outlaw Johnny Chance. Johnny gallops down the main street of Lillooet. Pedestrians and members of polite society quickly jump out of the way. He looks over his shoulder. The Mounties are on his tail. He takes a small handful of cash and throws it behind him. The money flies through the air. Pedestrians, seeing their chance at free money, start a mad herd scramble for the cash. The crowds filling up the streets and blocking the progress of the approaching Mounties. Johnny rides his horse up the crest of a dusty hill and looks around, noticing there's a train just starting to rumble down the tracks, headed in the direction of Seton Lake and Cayoosh Creek on its way back towards Vancouver. He steers his horse down the hill, easing up the reins as he reaches flat ground, kicking it to make it run in a fast gallop towards the slow speeding up train. The Mounties are now clear of the greedy pedestrians and come up on the crest of looking down. They see Johnny Chance riding like lightning towards the moving train, just down on the other side of the hill. "I can get a shot at him," one of the Mounties suggests, pulling his Winchester from his side saddle and taking aim at Johnny Chance. One of the shots hits the side of the moving train. The other one flies over Johnny's head as he runs beside the train, pushing his old horse to its sheer limit. He spots an empty boxcar up ahead. The train is starting to pick up speed as Johnny gets close to the open boxcar. He leaps from his horse into the back of the empty boxcar, where he rolls over the floor and rolls across the floor of the dusty boxcar, crashing into the metal wall, not moving for several minutes as pain shoots through his tired of running body. Johnny stands to his feet and crawls over to the open door of the boxcar and looks off towards Lillooet. The Mounties gallop down the hill towards the boxcar as the train whistles down the tracks, leaving the town of Lillooet behind. The Mounties ride across the train yard in frustration, recovering the horse of the outlaw that runs through the rail yards, frantic after losing his master. "Contact the train yards. We have to have that train stopped," Fred yells, watching the train speed around the side of the mountain in the direction of Seton Lake and vanishing from sight. Johnny sits in the darkness in the back of the train car, confident that he has escaped. He begins to count the money he stole from the bank, and a smile radiates across his face. "This is more money than ever made in all of last year," Johnny thinks to himself. "Perhaps the answer to my problem is bank robbery. Pays more than panning for gold any day." Reaching into the stolen poke he got from the bank and pulling out one of the large nuggets, its weight gives him goosebumps as he looks at his prize. "If only the old man could see me now," Johnny says. "I know the old drunken bastard would be proud." This is just as Johnny thinks he's starting to see the light. The train slowly starts to slow down. Johnny feels a growing sense of fear start to build in his belly. He looks outside across the vast Seton Lake. There's no place for a train to be stopping, he thinks to himself. In his heart, he knows the law has not given up yet. The train crosses over a small bridge crossing a turbulent creek that flows down from the wild mountains. Johnny jumps out of the train next to the track, looking back towards Lillooet. He can see the mountains on horseback, walking down the tracks toward him. "Bastards!" he curses as he turns around to run in the other direction, but there are two engineers walking down the tracks toward him. "There's no escape, outlaw!" one of the engineers yells in Johnny's direction. Both of the engineers are armed. One of them carries a shotgun and loads 2 shells into the chamber. Johnny quickly steps in between one of the boxcars, making his way to the other side of the train. As he does, one of the engineers fires off a blast from his shotgun, but he misses Johnny entirely. Johnny makes his way between the boxcars and starts running down the track in the direction of the creek, and he notices a trail heading upstream and into the mountains. Wasting no time, he follows the trail up the creek into the unknown. The Mounties have reached the other side of the bridge and are greeted by the engineers, who just catch the back of Johnny Chance as he disappears into the mountains. Chapter 2. The Battle on Mission Mountain. "He went up the trail that leads over Mission Mountain," the engineer says. "But we don't have time to follow. I have to have this train in Vancouver first thing in the morning. Besides, it's not my job to chase outlaws," the engineer yells to Fred Foreman, the captain of the Mounties. "I couldn't agree more with you, sir. Thanks for stopping the train. My men and I can handle this from here," Foreman replies as he and his 2 men cross over the bridge and follow the trail up the mountains to catch themselves an outlaw. Sorry, I have to take a little sip of water here. Johnny is running out of breath as the sun beams down on his head. He takes off his beat-up old hat and wiping sweat from his forehead. He looks behind to see if there's any sign of the law, but the police who had chased him out of Lillooet were nowhere to be seen, at least not yet. Thank God for that. Jail was not somewhere that Johnny Chance was ever going to spend any time again in this lifetime, if he could help it. There had to be a way to break out of this poverty. If only he could find some gold. Then he would at last be free. The dream of every man. And woman. God, I can't wait to make it to the top of this damn mountain, Johnny mumbles to himself. Johnny keeps hiking up the never-ending trail after what seems like hours. Johnny arrives at the top of the trail. He pauses to have a look at the scenery that is before him and can see the Bridge River snaking through the green valley below. It sure is beautiful, Johnny thinks to himself. If only I had a girl to share it with. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. Women like their men clean and successful, and Johnny Chance was far from that. He was nice to look at least is what he'd been told by his old love long left behind on the wharfs of San Francisco. Johnny continues his trek down the trail. He rounds a corner and notices off in the distance a large landslide covering the trail and gigantic boulders scattered about. Two men are crouched down, hiding behind one of the boulders, both of them, their guns drawn, ready for battle. "Get down, you idiot!" yells one of them men to Johnny. But it was too late. A gunshot rips into the ground near Johnny's feet, sending a spray of debris into the air. Johnny hits the ground and pulls his revolver from his dusty holster. "Get over here!" he yells one of the men. Johnny crawls along the rocky trail towards where the two men are hiding. "You're lucky Hunter Jack didn't blow your head off, son," the stranger yells to Johnny. The stranger was clearly a prospector himself, since he had a pick attached to his belt and gold pans on his backpack. "What's your name?" Johnny asked the stranger. "I am William Jackson, and my partner with the rifle is Clarence Shaver. We're both on our way to the Braylorn mines if this crazy Indian will just let us pass," William yells. "Oh Christ, they're on the move again," Clarence says with a trembling fear in his voice. "Look out, they're coming in from the sides," Clarence yells, as he fires his Winchester at one of Hunter's men, who is standing up on a large boulder just east of the Mission Mountain Trail. Clarence's shot misses his target, but the gunfire is quickly returned, and several shots ricochet off the rocks around Clarence, filling the air with a thick cloud of dust. "Christ, I think you pissed them off," Johnny yells, pointing towards 5 enraged natives who come charging up the trail. 2 of them carry pistols, and the other a bow and arrow. Walking behind them is an unusually tall, powerful-looking native. He holds a rifle in one hand and a pistol in the other, and he has long white hair flowing over his back, and he wears a black hat. "Who is that?" Johnny asks with complete wonder. "That, my friend, is the foe of every prospector trying to reach the Bridge River Goldfields. He goes by the name Hunter Jack," William explains, as he quickly loads a few more shells into his Winchester. "He thinks we're after his gold and he will not listen to reason," William explains. Johnny's ears perk up when he hears the word gold mentioned. "Well, are you here for his gold?" Johnny asks. "Well, yes and no. Look, now's not the time." The air is quickly filled with the hail of arrows and gunfire. One of the arrows rips into Clarence's throat. He falls down on his knees, blood squirting from his neck. There's a look of complete shock running across his face as the life within him goes out. He clutches his neck and falls to the ground with a dusty thump. William is filled with a torrent of rage, firing his Winchester with a sense of blood madness at his foes, but his bullets all fail to hit their target, being so angry he can't even focus. Clarence had come a long way to get to the Bridge River. He didn't deserve to die, not in this way. The Indian warrior standing on the rock jumps down on the trail, gun in hand. He fires at both Johnny and William. His shots ricochet off the boulders they're hiding nervously behind. Johnny fires his revolver from behind the rock, hitting both of the enraged natives, spilling their blood on their sacred land. The surviving natives start to sing in an ancient death chant. The air fills with a shrieking terror, sending a deep fear into the hearts of Johnny and William. Hunter Jack then takes aim at William, who's running over to where his friend and partner Clarence lies dead. William falls to his knees and for a second time lets the sadness of death wash over him as he looks into Clarence's dead eyes. "Lights out to you, my friend," William grumbles sadly, closing Clarence's eyes as a single salty tear rolls down his cheek. Johnny looks over at Hunter Jack and points his revolver at him, blasting off 2 quick rounds, but his shots rip into the rust-stained mountainside behind the old Indian. Hunter Jack quickly returns fire, cracking off several shots from his Winchester. One of the shots sends Johnny diving backwards and sliding down the rock side, which blocks the trail. William raises his pistol at Hunter Jack and has him in his sights when he is tackled by one of the natives who comes down from the rock bluffs. The native draws a sharp, rusty knife and lunges at William's throat. "Johnny!" William yells as he rolls across the dusty rocks in a death struggle with his enraged attacker. Williams cries, quickly snapping Johnny back into reality, who lies stunned at the bottom of the rockside. Realizing that Hunter Jack had not hit him and that he's still alive, Johnny shakes his sweaty head and regains his senses. He begins scrambling for his pistol, which had slipped from his grasp as he tumbled down the rock slide. He scans the area for it and quickly sees the gun's handle sticking out between two rocks. Just as Johnny reaches for his revolver, Hunter Jack appears at the top of the rock slide with a big smile on his face, and he has a smoking Winchester in his hand. Hunter Jack takes aim at Johnny. As he does, Johnny's hand pulls back the hammer on his gun, and he fires off 3 quick bursts. Hunter Jack is surprised by Johnny's lightning speed. One of the shots hits Hunter in the arm, who drops his gun as he falls to his knees, clutching his wound as blood drips through his old fingers. "You will die, white man," Hunter Jack yells as one of Johnny's other shots splits the skull of one of Hunter's men, and the other shot clips the other native in the leg, sending him toppling down the cliff. Hunter Jack gets to his feet and runs off in the forest. Hunter's remaining men follow him into the forest. "I wonder what changed his mind," Johnny mumbles, watching Hunter Jack flee, almost like he was scared of something. William and the native are still in the middle of their fight, rolling across the trail and down the bank on the other side. They both topple down a small rocky cliff over the edge. Johnny gets a quick glance at their death struggle as he starts to climb back up the rock slide to the main trail. When Johnny reaches the top of the rock slide, he walks over and looks over the cliff where the 2 men had fallen. He looks down and sees William laying face down next to the river, his rifle still in his hands. The native he was fighting has vanished. Johnny scrambles down the cliff to help his new friend. When Johnny reaches him, he flips William over and is now awake, breathing, much to Johnny's relief. Where's your Indian friend?" Johnny asks. "I don't know," William replies as he sits up and looks around. "He just kind of vanished." "So did Hunter Jack, like something had him spooked," Johnny explains. "Not so fast, outlaw," a loud, deep voice yells from back up on the cliffs above. Fred Foreman and his Mounties have not given up the chase and take out their weapons. "Perhaps the law is what scared them off," William suggests. "Damn it, the cops!" Johnny says in panic, spotting the Mounties up on the cliff. "The bastards will not get me. I will not go back to jail again." "Wait a minute. Who are you, and what the hell did you do?" William asks his new friend. "I was out of money and I robbed the bank. Did pretty well. You should see the nuggets," Johnny explains proudly. "Stop where you are," the Mounties demand. William struggles to his feet and tries to walk as the RCMP dismount up above and start walking down the cliffs toward them. William gets terribly dizzy very quickly as he tries to stand and soon finds himself falling down. "Damn you, old man," Johnny says, grabbing William and hauling him to his feet. "Don't curse old age too much, Chance," William grumbles. "The bastard will be on you before you have time to even think about it." Johnny Chance and William Jackson turn and run down the mountainside, disappearing into the maze of valleys that make up the Bridge River, trying to lose Fred Foreman and the RCMP Mounties, hoping to catch them for the bank robbery in Lillooet earlier on that day. That's all for now. If you enjoyed that at all, if you're still here, comment, say something. It's from a book that I've finished. It has a working title called Johnny Chance. Might not be its final title, but that's just a little bit. I mean, a real tiny little bit from it. So anyway, this is Crom 2000. Sorry it's not a big video with lots of running around the bush, but we'll be on that again soon in the summer. All right.